Thank you very much for the introduction, and welcome to everyone who came to this talk. Let's start out. Of course, I can't help but start this talk with a little exercise and challenge. So I'm going to let you guys give you a minute to read these two bodies of text, and I'll ask which one you think is generated by AI. This is not one of those trick questions. I know that's been popular recently. Okay. So I guess please raise your hand if you think the left one is generated by AI. Raise your hand if you think it's the one on the right. Okay. So the left one was written by ChatGPT. I might have done some engineering on that one. And the right one is found in the Encyclopedia Britannica. Unfortunately, GPTZero was able to detect both of those examples successfully. So we all know the story. Starting in November 30th, 2022, OpenAI opened the floodgates when they released ChatGPT with unprecedented scale. It launched to 100 million users in only 2 months after its launch. And while this opened so many of the opportunities you see here today for startups and companies to increase productivity and automate their work, we've also seen massive examples of its ability to increase the productivity of bad actors and actors who are spreading misinformation both to harm companies as well as countries. So let's talk about what can go wrong, and how do we make sure that we adopt this new technology in a responsible way? So July 2nd, source comes out that the SEC confirms Gary Gensler's resignation, and this article gets hundreds of thousands of views online, on Twitter, spread in the crypto community. One of the investigators, NewsGuard, powered by GPTZero, as I'll show shortly, was able to debunk this. But this is just one example, and it's pretty easy to confirm that it didn't really happen. August 8th, on Twitter, we see multiple examples of peer-reviewed journals accepting clearly AI-written articles without review. So now we have journals like Elsevier publishing these articles that don't properly cite or acknowledge their AI use. Recently, last week, NewsGuard confirms over 475 AI-generated news farms have been found on the internet so far. And this is usually mostly using primitive techniques, things like detecting whether or not they have these, as an AI language model type of word signatures, as well as using GPT-0. So now this is not only a threat to advertisers who are unwillingly putting their ads on these sites, it's also to our news media, to the news that our children might be reading. So it just goes to show you a bit of the scale of the problem. I think initially there was a lot of optimism in the responsible use of AI. So we have talks from Sam Altman saying, they're not planning on working on GPT-5 anytime soon, and I really think they're trying hard and doing a best effort to make these systems more responsible, etc. There was a massive open letter signed by 30,000 people, many of whom are industry leaders, to possibly pause AI research. However, we know now that the race is on. So companies like Stability, Anthropic, Cohere, Facebook, and Google have all decided to release their own AI models. And of course, this opens a lot of possibilities for developers to solve pressing problems outside of the gates of these ML model developers. However, it also poses some risks. We also saw a trademark being filed for GPT-5 as expected. And more concerningly, the leaking of these models and sharing on places like 4chan, which is the dark corners of the internet. So we can no longer just rely on responsible LLM developers to fix the problem, because we now have irresponsible LLM developers trying to create free, unrestrained versions of language models. So let's dissect a little bit why AI-generated text might freak us out, and what problems it really solves. Like, is my chatbot telling me that it loves me, like a problem? Maybe it's a solution, but it's let's talk a little bit about the serious stuff, right? So one thing that we know for sure is that LLMs still suffer from this data poisoning problem. So let's go through a little story. In early April, some researchers were looking asking ChatGPT to give a list of professors who've been accused of sexual harassment. And this one, Jonathan Turley, was actually not only named, the ChatGPT cited a fictitious Washington Post article to back up its own claim. And so Washington Post came out with this article, confirming that they never wrote this, that this never happened. And so, clearly, we know that facts can be hallucinated and that they can affect real people. But more concerningly, if you actually look up this story on Bing Chat, it will cite the news articles about that mistake as evidence, uncritically, that this did indeed happen. And so these hallucinations are being taken as fact by other RAG-enabled LLMs. More recently, we can see that even Google search results are being poisoned. And so in this case, you ask, can you melt eggs? It's not like a thing that can be done. And the first result that comes out is this source. And where did this come from, right? It's not attached to any source or website. So it turns out, because Quora is able to show up on the top rank for most Google questions, and they're citing ChatGPT in their question answering workflow, we can see Google citing Quora, citing ChatGPT, citing no one knows, right? And so we have this game of broken telephone that's being played online, and we are basically impervious to where we are on the chain. So while that's one problem, we also know something like this. So let's say all the LLM developers fix this problem, and I think they're going to do a lot of good work. What's still the problem of having massively flooding our internet with LLM written text? And part of that is because human writing, is the original blockchain. We have proof of work built in, whereas AI text doesn't. And why is that important? Well, we actually like that human writing takes effort, and we like that trending topics online matter to a lot of people before they get to us, right? So this is just a screen cap on Twitter. I thought this was pretty funny because this was referencing Canadian figure Gerald Butts, right? But at least I know that this is because a lot of people care and we're talking about this. On the other hand, we've seen times when one bad actor can dominate an entire sphere of conversation with a deployment of bots on a network. And people have analyzed this in depth in Twitter, as some other platforms. And so these capabilities are just magnified. Their ability to detect these bots are also being put into doubt because of these capabilities. Finally, I like to think if you don't use it, you lose it. That refers to our gains. It also refers to some of our other capabilities. So another story that I thought was super interesting. CNET, great publication that's read by 40 million people every month, used an AI to write financial explainers. They didn't actually announce this. Engadget was the one who broke this story. And in response, CNET told us, well, actually, each generated article was fact-checked, it was edited, and you don't have to worry. And so while I think that is a great model for increasing human productivity, soon afterwards, they found that actually they had to correct most of their AI-written articles. And this is only after they were notified of these major errors. So what went wrong, and how can we prevent this? And part of the answer is we have this inability as humans to actually stay on top of things like when they're increasingly automated, when we're taking humans out of the loop, and so we lose control. Okay, so some of the scary stuff. How can we actually develop a transparent internet that you can trust, that our children can trust, right? That we can, for people who aren't in LLMs and have this kind of idea of where they fail and where they don't fail, how can we make it better for the general public? So we think that it's important to build AI safeguards, AI safety, beyond just what's already embedded in the LLM. And so I think it's important that we have the ability to expose how content was generated, what source it came from. It's important to ask platforms to require a transparency on where they use AI, citing it, or otherwise showing where the data came from. And I think it's important to understand how our data is being trained to inform LLMs about us. And so let's talk about a few of the early initiatives that are starting this very early space. So one of the organizations that's one of our favorites is NewsGuard. So they're an organization that helps basically put a nutrition label on the information sources we see online. So they apply rigorous kind of review process to sources like the mainstream news as well as others on topics of like citing good sources, not writing sensational headlines. And more recently, they've helped to scrape the web to identify AI-generated news farms that I was referring to earlier. And so some of that investigation is powered by using GPTZero to detect when the text is generated by AI, especially when there aren't clear markers like, as a language, large language model, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so when this story broke, one of the earliest reporters to know that it was AI generated, they did this by using some of our technology, which allows them to easily scan text on the web. I also think that some of the work being done by very pro-AI RAG-enabled companies are actually helping us have more transparency as to where did this knowledge come from. It's actually automated in an automated way, finds and cites sources to compose its message. As we've seen before, these systems are still not yet 100% perfect, but I think it's definitely the right step forwards. We also have seen platforms actually require the disclosure of AI. And so in some platforms, many of whom are scientific journals, this is mandatory. Elsevier, Science, Springer Nature. And for other platforms where it's either optional or coming soon, we know the European Union is drafting legislation. Archive already asks writers to do this. And TikTok and Instagram are coming up with tools to enable people to label their content. One of the problems of this approach is that while you can ask people nicely, there is no way of actually making them do so, and there's no way of checking either. And so one of the things that we've started is to scan text on the web and help people see, on average, where is AI being used on these platforms. And so you have a range of very AI-heavy publications like justblog.ai, down to very AI-light ones like businessinsider.com. And I think hopefully this puts pressure on publishers to disclose this more openly and readily. Going back to your data, we think it's important that you have the ability to know how you're being scraped and how that's being used to inform what the LLMs should think about you. And so one of the early tools we really like from the big science group who developed Bloom is a search tool to be able to search their data set for mentions of how you're included, what articles were written about you. This is one about Jeffrey Hinton. And you can see there's actually over 2,000 results about him in this data set. The problem is most data sets that are being trained on commercial LLMs don't have this openness, and thus we don't have transparency. In addition, there's starting to be an initiative, mostly driven on the commercial, legal side, on allowing people to opt out of being scraped or opt out of certain parts of their data from being scraped online. And so this is an example of the tags you could put on your website to prevent OpenAI from scraping your data for their future data sets. However, this still doesn't solve the fact that someone could simply copy your content, put it on their own site, and that site is not using this sort of filter. And so, again, all these kind of opt-in solutions still have these big data leaks. So, of course, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing at GPTZero and how we're trying to address this issue. So first, I'll introduce the faces behind the name. On the left is my co-founder, Edward Tian, formerly at Princeton, BBC, investigative journalist at Bellingcat, and recently working on transparency initiatives at Microsoft. And myself, I used to work at a bunch of AI companies. I thought a lot about disinformation and the like. So back in January 2nd, we openly launched one of the first AI detectors for the public. So this started out as kind of a research project with one of the inventors of GPT, actually, as in the university project. And we quickly saw that response exploded. So today, going from what we had before, now, of course, we've built a full platform around this technology, and I'll go into that a little bit more. Within 4 months, we actually saw a huge response to this technology, with over 2.5 million users and several, basically, most major news publications trying to report and give an angle on how this impacts our future. Today, we have over 100 different enterprise partners and clients who trust us for helping them address AI transparency in their organizations and in their institutions. We have a team. After raising our seed round in March, we've built a team of one of the few research groups focused on AI detection from various institutions. Cool, so actually let's talk about what we've built. So we've built a platform for many of the non-technical folks to be able to easily scan text for AI, for plagiarism, and in general, to uncover the source of where this text was originated. We also have an API for enterprises who want to build this into their own solutions, available on-prem with total privacy. And so part of what our product looks like is sentence by sentence highlighting an overall view on where AI is being found in this text. How does it work? I think this slide might have been cut off by the time it was sent, but we actually have 4 main ways of detecting AI, part of our AI pipeline. So we've built large-scale data sets with billions of tokens of human and AI-generated text, both taken from the wild and also synthesized from human examples in our lab. We then train best-in-class deep learning models to distinguish the two, and we actually track constantly exploits being used to bypass other AI detectors. Finally, we also built in checking to make sure that the text being scanned wasn't already found in a human data source pre-2021. I know a lot of you might be thinking about the accuracy, and I think that's a really important question. We have the best-in-class accuracy based on a public benchmark you can go and look up and try for yourself. We know that we've tuned our model to less than 1% false positive rate, but we still know that 1% can be too high of a number for some use cases where that needs to be lower. And so we've also built additional layers to enable people to have more transparency. We actually launched a new paradigm for verifying work as human. And so now, included in popular word editors like Google Docs, you have the ability to share the writing process with readers, showing how exactly a document was synthesized, and being able to see those typing analytics actually gives a much fuller picture, showing that was this work indeed something that came out out of your brain into your fingers, or is it something that's copied from somewhere else? We then create shareable reports that you can use to stamp your writing and certify it to the world. So we think this is early start to a new paradigm where serious writers are able to show the originality of their work and stand out from the crowd of work that's being pumped into the web. We've also developing ways for developers to have authenticity insights in your app, where you have the ability to turn any text box into a text box that differentiates between certified original writing and bot-written writing or low-quality text. And finally, we also have the ability for people on our website to certify their writing as their own and allow us to defend it. So what does that mean? Once you scan your text, you can actually submit a writing report demonstrating how you typed it out, and or add other signifiers of your provenance, such as a publication link, etc. And then we have the ability now to scan the web to see where your text is being used, how it's being copied, or whether it's being found in data sets that are being trained on. So that's a little summary of some of the products we've built. Let's go a little bit deeper into what specific risks we think LLMs pose to businesses. So we know now that search engines are aware and looking out for spammy AI-generated text. And we think this is awesome. We think it's important because ultimately we should be delivering high-quality search results to people. I don't know if you've ever had to prepend your search with site.reddit.com, right? And why is that? Why does Reddit provide better search results? It's because they have this community-generated filter that allows you to see whether or not this work is actually interesting, whether the insights are real, or whether it's like SEO hacking. And so in the same way, we have actually seen correlation between how much your marketing copy is being detected, like what percentage of it seems AI, and what its search ranking is. With, in some categories, a 1% difference can make 2 or 3 spot rank difference in rankings. We've also really excited to announce one of our partnerships in which we actually help companies safeguard their own in-house AI models. So I can imagine a lot of you are here today because you're interested in deploying AI into your business. And we think there's a lot of great potential, a lot of positive productivity benefits to that. However, we've seen from multiple academic sources and research that when your model is being trained on data, and that data is actually itself AI generated, then your model actually suffers greatly. So we've seen studies where we feed the outputs of an AI into itself, and we retrain it, and we retrain it again until we see that essentially you regress to noise. And so these models are actually, many of them are being trained on OpenAI, on ChatGPT generated labels, because labelers have figured out that in order to make more money, they can just simply automate their labeling instead of writing it out themselves. And so in this example, you can see that after 2, 3, 4 generations of training on itself, the error drastically increases on these LLMs. So we actually work with one of Silicon Valley's largest data labeling firms to ensure high quality data for their clients. So based on internal tests, they've actually seen that filtering out AI-generated labels leads to better metrics, longer high-quality outputs, better adherence to the prompts, and less hallucination, which is something that we love at GPTZero as well. And more importantly, human reviewers preferred those responses. So we think that now there's AI detection actually is a key component for serious data labelers to make sure that the labelers are actually working with integrity, providing high quality labels that make your models better, make your customers happier, etc. And this is all with our API. Another threat vector we've seen is the rise of AI-generated text and e-commerce reviews. And so, as I was talking about with the proof of work, this not only matters to social media platforms, it also matters to places where your product is being reviewed. We already know TripAdvisor is on the lookout for this. And actually, based on recent studies done, we've seen the amount of AI-generated reviews skyrocket on reputable review sites like Capterra, where people are making buying decisions. And so we really think it's important for these platforms to retain their content integrity with AI detection. And finally, we think that the use of AI to basically create false signals for businesses that are trying to sell, trying to attract investment, has also the great capacity to increase. We know that messaging app IRL actually raised more than 200 million from investors like SoftBank before it shut down because 95% of its users were fake. And doing this has become easier and more easy than ever, and more pressing for audit firms and M&A teams to properly assess. So if you're interested in working together, we'd love to collaborate to help power your AI transparency initiatives. And we're also growing our team, which you can see on our website. And so if you scan this QR code, we're really excited to give AI conference attendees 3 months of free premium access. It's just a simple form. We won't spam you, I promise. Yeah, we're happy to answer any questions about GPTZero. Yeah, over there. Absolutely. So, yeah, so the question is, essentially, if you have a 99% accuracy rate, but there's still that 1% error, what do you do, especially if you're someone working at a school? And so we think that, first of all, even 1% is too high for a application that you're trying to use to, let's say, do something like punish students, right? And so that's why we don't advocate that simple AI detection, like some other companies are doing, is being used in like the plagiarism context, where one instance of plagiarism is like unacceptable. And so that's partially why we advocate for all educators to instead like actually look at a writing report and only then like find ways to work with a student to make sure their work is original. And so I think I like to say in education, if you have a positive AI detection, it's kind of like you're a bit too late. And so while it should be used as a signal to show where there is a problem, we think that actually focusing on the process, right, being able to look at that writing history and understand how the students synthesize the work is the way that it should be used in education. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So why do AI detectors have false negatives in which they don't detect AI? And so there are instances where we actually had a big teacher community and Facebook group where people post all sorts of examples. And we've seen examples where students have tried to take AI bypassing so far that they actually generate, ask these ChatGPT to generate seemingly nonsense text, text that's like, crazily varying in style and referencing parts of the book that don't exist. And so I think there's two parts. One is, yeah, we've seen more like nonsense text being generated and sent to these AI detectors, and that's not something we're trying to detect. But secondly, we also know there's an ever-evolving and growing amount of AI, and part of what we're doing is constantly creating data pipelines to retrain our models. And so we update our models on a monthly basis. But absolutely, there are times when AI is able to get through the most recent patch. I saw a hand over there. Yes, yes, you. So the question was, do we have a proof of work for e-commerce reviews? And so something that I demonstrated before was our text box integration, where you can get AI and writing insights in your app. And so that's our solution for e-commerce review sites by having. So I would say if you're the site itself, this is something you can use to defend your platform. If you are the consumer, then we actually have a web browsing platform that allows you to scan web pages automatically for AI. All right, thank you so much, guys.